good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. It's called Culture Bucket. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Culture Bucket, Georgia and Alex.
Hi, welcome back to the 68th episode of Culture Bucket, the world's greatest podcast, the universe's greatest podcast. Is that right? 68 episodes?
68.
Yeah. So what does that mean? We've only got 52 to go until the big 120.
That is crazy.
That
120 makes no sense.
Absolute madness. You join us this week as we're going a little bit art house, a little bit indie, a little bit special. And we're going to be doing a deep dive and discussion of the 2021 fantastic Norwegian film. Sorry. Norwegian film. Norwegian film. The Worst Person in the World.
Yeah.
And discussing, I guess, who is the worst person in the world? Is it a lady in Oslo, or is it someone terrible that you're not going to disagree with me on? I can't think of anyone. Tony Blair. Is it Tony Blair, or is it a lady in Oslo? We'll find out after we talk about the film.
That took a while.
Is it the Nan? Could it be the Nan?
Is it the Nan?
Is the Nan
I
the
really
worst
wanted to
person?
watch the film. I was like, I really want to watch it because I watched the trailer.
Oh, did you?
I was like, I kind of want to watch it because the trailer doesn't look too bad.
Ooh.
But then I read some reviews and it's like the worst rated film on... I know the worst rated film is Morbius, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. But
I think that's
the
because
Nan is there.
more people have seen Morbius.
Okay. Yeah.
It is bad. Morbius is bad.
Yeah.
Incompetently made. Both of them are actually incompetently made. Not like The Worst Person in the World. Very professional production.
Yeah.
But before we get to The Worst Person in the World, I should remind you that my name is George and my co-host is Alex. Hi, Alex.
How you doing, George?
Good. I'm on holiday now, so I feel much more relaxed and full of energy than I did last week, which is good. Sorry if the energy dipped slightly last week. I was feeling particularly at the end of my frayed rope. But this week, the rope has been re-braided, given a bit of a polish, and it's had something rubbed on it to make it strong. How are you?
I'm like you last week. I'm getting at the end of my rope, and I don't know how I can make it into next week. Our school holidays start next Thursday.
Ooh,
and
exciting.
we have to go back to school the Tuesday after. It's not like
It's not much
England.
of a holiday. What?
No, it's like 5 days.
Oh, that's stupid.
And we're like we've got the Vatican in our country. We should celebrate the death of Jesus more.
Your country surrounds the Vatican. The Vatican is a separate country.
Yeah, but we have the Vatican in our country.
You should understand the basic geography of your own country that you live in, Alex.
What did I say? I said we have the Vatican in our country.
No, your country is outside of the Vatican. It just happens to surround it, but it's not in that country. It's its own country. I got very badly scammed at a restaurant outside the walls of the Vatican once.
Oh, what did they do?
They offered a very cheap meal that me and my father accepted, and then we discovered when the bill came that they had charged like €20 for the drinks, for each drink. Which made it far more expensive than just going to a meal in a non-criminal restaurant.
Yeah, definitely.
That was good.
Terrible.
So, Culture Catch-Up.
This is Culture Catch-Up time. This is where we talk about what we've watched, what we've read, what we've listened to, and probably some other stuff. Culture Catch-Up time.
I'm going to start this week, aren't I?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
So
It
I
is your
briefly
turn
mentioned.
to start.
Yes, it is. I briefly mentioned last week that I had watched a good film that I wasn't talking about because I'd rather talk about the Nan movie. So I thought I would talk about it briefly today because it is a very good film and people should watch it. And it's one of those movies that it's not really a big blockbuster, so people aren't going to rush to the cinema to see it. And it's not going to have loads of award recognition, so people aren't going to kind of hear about it because of the Oscars or the BAFTAs, etc. But it's just a nice, good, heartfelt, lovely little British comedy movie, and I really liked it, and people should watch it. And it is called The Phantom of the Open.
Oh.
And it tells the true story of a man named Maurice Flitcroft, who was a sort of crane operator in the north of England. I think that's right. It's such a small film that it doesn't even have a plot section on its Wikipedia page. But I believe he was from the north of England. Where was he from? He was born in Manchester. He was a crane operator, born in Manchester, worked on the outskirts of Manchester as a crane operator somewhere. And anyway, he decided fairly late in life, after never having seen it or had any interest in it at all, that he wanted to play golf and enter the British Open Championship. Which he ended up entering, ticked professional on his entry form, claiming to be a professional golfer. And because it was the 70s and they didn't really have the checks that you may have today, they just said, well, nobody would lie about being professional. It doesn't matter, we haven't heard of him. And they accepted it, and he got to go and play in the British Open, where he played the worst round of golf that has ever been played at the British Open. And got himself a world record. And then got himself banned from every golf club in the country and was banned from entering the British Open again. So returned the following year in the guise of a Frenchman named Gerard, I think, with a fake moustache. This really happened. This was a real event that happened. He genuinely returned and re-entered the Open as a Frenchman and obviously got caught. And he kind of was this... At least the way the film plays it out is this figure who sort of is like, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. What matters is that you tried and you followed your heart and did something that you wanted to do. And I think that's a really kind of lovely, heartfelt message. And I really appreciated it. And I think the film kind of reaches a really beautiful point where he discovers that the things he's been doing, the sights he's set himself on of playing golf despite the world telling him he shouldn't be playing golf, has actually had more of an influence. I won't spoil how, but has actually had more of an influence on the world than he would have known. And the movie ends at kind of a beautiful place. And again, genuinely really happened. And the thing I've left out up to this point is that Maurice Flitcroft in the film is played by an actor who has irritated me in multiple films recently, but kind of shows in this movie why he is considered such a legend, and it's Mark Rylance playing Maurice Flitcroft, who we've seen recently in films like Don't Look Up, playing a very irritating Mark Zuckerberg sort of guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in this he plays Maurice Flitcroft perfectly. His wife is played by Sally Hawkins, and it also features Rhys Ifans as the sort of head of the British Golf Association, I suppose.
Okay, I like him.
And yeah, it's just a funny, heartfelt little movie that's not going to change the world, but it's a really lovely way to spend a couple of hours, and I really liked it, and I think people should watch it. If you haven't seen, that's one of the movies where it's quite likely there might be people listening to this that hadn't really given it a chance, hadn't given it the time of day. I wouldn't normally go and watch a movie about golf, but it's brilliant, really good, really, really good. So, yeah, well done to The Phantom of the Open. Up next, I also went to see a movie that I'm not going to talk about for as long because it's bad. Is a film called Umma.
Umma,
Umma.
yeah.
Oh, do you know?
Umma. Yeah, no, I know. I don't know if I watched a trailer. You showed me a trailer, but I know of the film
Umma.
because it's mum in Korean, isn't it?
It is mum in Korean, but this movie is American. But wants you to think that it's like when Ringu was huge in the late 90s and it inspired a wave of American remakes of Japanese and Korean horror films. This movie almost wants you to think that it's a remake of a Korean horror film, but that film doesn't exist. It's not a remake of anything. It's an original film. It is produced by Sam Raimi, one of the greatest directors of all time. But when you see his name under the produced by section, it often signals problems, because remember years and years ago there was a film that was advertised on all the bus stops near where I went to school called The Boogeyman or The Bogeyman, and that in big letters was always like produced by Sam Raimi, and that movie was awful, and this movie is awful, and it's a pity because it stars Sandra Oh, who is a wonderful, perfect actress, who's so good in stuff like Killing Eve, and is trying her best in this film, along with an actress called Fievel Stewart, who I don't know, but plays Izzy in Atypical, so you will know who that is.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love her. She's very amazing. Yeah. She's I like her.
So Sandra Oh is Amanda. Fievel Stewart is Chris, Amanda's daughter, and the only other real actor in the movie is Dermot Mulroney playing Danny. Now, Amanda and Chris live on a farm together where they raise bees in beehives and sell their honey. They have no electricity on the farm because Amanda, the mother, is allergic to electricity, which is a plot point that they've stolen from a season of Better Call Saul, I think, for some reason.
The brother says that he's allergic to electricity. Yeah. So
Sandra Oh's got the Chuck from Better Call Saul disease in this film. So no electricity, which means everything has to be candlelit to try and be spooky. And we're not really told why, but we can tell that Amanda's very nervous of the world. All her food and stuff is brought to her from the owner of the local shop, played by Dermot Mulroney, who delivers it like every so often, and then she gives him crates of honey to go off and sell. And he tells her early on that people love her honey. There's an influencer has promoted her honey on Instagram, and now he can't sell enough of her honey, so she wants to build another beehive and make even more honey, but she'll need her daughter's help, and her daughter wants to go to college. And isn't that just the plot of every sort of coming of age movie you've ever seen? And in amongst all of this, a mysterious man turns up who is Amanda's uncle, tells her that her mother has died. She obviously did not have a good relationship with her mother, and leaves her a box that supposedly has her mother's remains and last objects of possessions in it for her to dispose of appropriately. And at that point we start seeing, in the shadows, is that the mother, the ghost of the mum, and then look at here's a bit of fabric, and suddenly it's folding itself into the shape of a face, and it sort of does that same jump scare thing where a face jumps out at you about 18 times, and that's basically the only scare the movie has. And it's 80 minutes long, which is always a poor sign when a movie barely can struggle over what would constitute the minimum runtime for a feature-length film. And it struggles to get to that point, and it does not justify its own existence, and it's rubbish. So, unfortunately, despite managing to cast two excellent actors in the lead roles, this movie doesn't work. So, that's a pity, because I went to see it based on the fact that I really like Sandra Oh, and she deserves better. Up next, though, oh boy. Have you heard of a movie called Deep Water?
Yes, I've heard of it. I watched a trailer. I saw Jacob Elordi talking amazingly about it. Well, no, first of all, I saw Jacob Elordi talking amazingly about it. Of course, he had to promote it. Then I watched the trailer, and I was like, "Is that Ben Affleck again in Gone Girl?" And then I was like, why is Jacob? Because Jacob Elordi was saying how these kind of films are not made anymore. I was like, I'm pretty sure I haven't watched it, but I'm pretty sure it looks a lot like Gone Girl, and Ben Affleck as the silly husband and the beautiful wife messing around with him. I don't know.
But I suppose Gone Girl is a thriller.
Yeah.
Whereas Deep Water wants to be considered in the canon of erotic thrillers, such as Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct.
That's what he was talking about. Yeah. Those films that do not belong in our world anymore.
People don't make erotic thrillers anymore, is what he's saying.
Thank God.
And people continue to not make erotic thrillers because this movie is less erotic than the children's movie I'm about to talk about after we talk about this. This is the most sexless film I've ever seen, despite featuring, quite hardcore sex scenes. Directed by Adrian Lyne, who directed Fatal Attraction. And Flashdance and Jacob's Ladder in 9.5 Weeks, supposedly, should be considered a fairly decent director, although he is 81, so maybe he is, at a point where if he wanted to, he could have retired, but instead he's not. In fact, he's not made a movie since 2002, and this was the film that he said, yes, I will come out of my retirement to make Deep Water. Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck play a married couple. They actually met on the set of this film and fell in love and are already broken up and exes before the movie's even released, which I think might be why the movie ended up getting... I think the studio that made this film hoped that Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas' relationship would blossom into something that the tabloids became obsessed with, and that they could then sell the movie on the back of their relationship, whereas what actually happened...
Just a second.
Okay, go on.
Rewind.
Yep.
Were they a couple?
They were a couple, yeah. They met making this movie, and they were a couple, and then they broke up. And there's a very funny photo somewhere of Ana de Armas shoving a cardboard cutout of Ben Affleck into a bin. Or it might be the other way around. No, I'm pretty sure that's the way around it is.
So they met on the set of this movie and fell in love. And when was this movie made?
This movie was filmed in... When was it filmed? 2019, November 2019 was when it started.
Because he's already with Jennifer Lopez now.
He is indeed, yes.
Okay.
So when they split up, I think the movie got delayed because their dream of selling this movie, like if they'd become the new Bennifer, if it had become Banner, they could have promoted this movie on the basis of look at how attractive these two people are together, and look, it's blossomed. Whereas in fact they broke up, and I don't think they want anything to do with each other. So the movie ended up sort of getting its theatrical release got pulled. It's ended up on Hulu in America and Amazon Video in the UK, and
that's why it's only Jacob Elordi promoting this video.
Probably because you've got Ben Affleck, Ana de Armas, and then Jacob Elordi is in there, and there's a couple of other people in there, including the actress that plays Nancy, the American girlfriend of Jez from Peep Show, unexpectedly turned up. But yeah, broadly, it's not got much of a cast. Lil Rel Howery is in it, completely wasted because I really like him, but he's got nothing to do in this film. The basic plot of the movie is that Ben Affleck is married to Ana de Armas. Vic Allen is married to Melinda Van Allen, and Ben Affleck, he wrote the software that controls drones, and so has retired because obviously the American military has paid him a huge amount of money for his drone software. There's a character very early on that has a big go at him for helping to, create drones that go and kill civilians in war-torn countries around the world. And he says, well, they could be delivering food parcels to those places. It's not my... Anyway, and then his young, attractive wife, Melinda, is sort of... It's set up early on to be a horrible person. She yells and screams at their daughter quite early on because she's playing a nursery rhyme on the Alexa to the point where, no, don't you dare.
What?
I'm just going to mute my own Alexa.
Okay.
Is to the point where I was like, that must be her stepdaughter. That must be like Ben Affleck's daughter from a previous marriage, because no mother would talk to their own child like that. Yeah, no, it is her child, it turns out. So she enjoys they spend their lives going to parties, and these parties always have the same set of people at them, and she enjoys picking up men at these parties, making out with them very publicly, sleeping with them, and sort of rubbing it in the face of Ben Affleck, who I think she thinks she is keeping him interested. She's like, you'd be really bored if I was just a normal wife. Like, you enjoy the fact that I do all of this to keep you kind of engaged in whatever ridiculous games we're playing. And these men that she is sleeping with keep turning up dead, and I don't know if we're meant to ever do anything other than know that it's Ben Affleck killing them, but I think the movie tries to set up as a mystery, but no, it is Ben Affleck's murdering these guys. And then the movie sort of ends, and at no point is it thrilling, so it's not a thriller, and at no point is it erotic, so it's not erotic. So this, and like I've seen like the very few good reviews of this I've seen are people being like, nobody said it was an erotic thriller, people just decided it had to be an erotic thriller. But I think it's, just because it's not erotic doesn't mean it's not. It's boring. It's just a boring, bad, stupid, silly movie with weird performances, particularly from Ana de Armas, one of my favorite. Like, I will watch just about anything she's in. I watch this movie because she's in it, and she's given nothing to do, and she's given this horrible character to play, and it's just weird, and it's just strange. It's a strange, stupid, bad, weird movie that has ended up being stuck on streaming because nobody wanted to put it in the cinema, because nobody would go and pay to see this, and you shouldn't waste your time with it at home. It was boring and rubbish. And Ben Affleck's character, it's got these weird, like Ben Affleck's character collects snails, he rears snails, he's a snail, he has loads of snails as pets in a greenhouse. And why? There's no reason for it. Stupid, bad, silly film. Didn't like it, hated it. Right, last one I'm going to talk about today is an actual good film, big recommendation, absolutely loved it. It's a new children's movie that I think is in danger of just disappearing and people not seeing it because the trailers don't sell it particularly well. It's not based on something people already know, and it's not a Disney movie, so it doesn't just have it's like a DreamWorks animation movie. So I think it could easily just get lost, which would be a pity if it did get lost because it's great. And it is a movie called The Bad Guys. Have you heard of this film?
Only from your letterbox, so no.
Oh, okay. So it follows a gang called The Bad Guys who live in this city. I don't know if the city's ever really given a name, but they're basically famous criminals in the way that only in a children's film can you have famous criminals. And they are all anthropomorphized animals, even though largely the rest of the cast are just humans, but they are animals, and they are just named after the animal they are. So you've got Sam Rockwell voicing Mr. Wolf, the leader of the bad
Sam
guys.
Rockwell.
Yep.
Awesome.
Mark Maron is Mr. Snake, the second in command. Anthony Ramos, who's in Hamilton and other things, is Mr. Piranha. He's the muscle of the gang, and he's got a short temper. Craig Robinson is Mr. Shark, who is a master of disguise, which is very funny because it doesn't matter what he does, he always looks like a great white shark, but people always fall for his disguises, which is a good running gag. And Awkwafina as Mrs. Tarantula, or Miss Tarantula, who is a hacker because obviously she can hack the web. Get it?
Amazing.
Yeah. And the film sort of opens with them pulling off yet another classic robbery and escaping from the chief of police, who's voiced by Alex Borstein, who I think is Lois from Family Guy. Yeah, she is. And basically, they decide that they're going to go after the biggest heist of all time, which is to steal a golden dolphin before it is handed to Professor Marmalade, a guinea pig who has been named the Good Citizen of the Year. And at the heist, Mr. Wolf helps an old lady down the stairs, and he tries to rob this old lady, and she trips, and he ends up helping her, and she says, "Oh, you're such a good boy," and his tail starts wagging, and his fur goes all funny, and he suddenly thinks, "Oh, it feels nice to be a good guy occasionally," and they get caught in the heist, and Professor Marmalade, voiced by Richard Ayoade, decides that he's going to do an experiment to see if he can turn the bad guys into good guys, and if he does, the governor, Diane Foxington, voiced by Zazie Beetz, who is very, very good in this, will give them a clean start, a fresh start as good guys. This movie is great. Like the plot's fine and good enough. The voice acting is all really, really charismatic and wonderful. The animation is incredible. Like it's really good computer generated animation. It doesn't try to look realistic. It's really happy to be a cartoon to the point where all of the characters' eyes look hand drawn. Like you've got these 3D models, but the eyes are incredibly expressive and almost flat in the way that hand drawn animation is. And when they get into fights, the scratch marks that appear on different characters look hand drawn rather than CGI animated, and swirls of dust look hand drawn. And it's this incredible blend of like the hand drawn aesthetic with the CGI aesthetic, and it just really works. And again, the fact that it's not trying to look real, because like Pixar are great now at doing almost photorealistic CGI animated movies, but animation, the great thing about animation is it doesn't have to look realistic. It can be, and it can be stylized. It can be whatever they want it to be. And you know, in this, characters squash and they stretch and they get deformed and they are animated characters, and it's wonderful. And yeah, it's a brilliant movie, surprisingly brilliant. And also, if you like films like Ocean's 11 and Reservoir Dogs, like this film has at least 3 sequences of somebody explaining the plot of a heist while you see the heist happening underneath their voiceover, which is like such a good, satisfying scene in any crime movie, and you get plenty of that in this film as well. So yeah, The Bad Guys is great. I loved it, and if you get a chance to see it, you should watch it, because I think it could easily end up falling away, a bit like The Mitchells versus the Machines last year.
Yeah. Why did you watch it? What was it on at the cinema?
It was on at the cinema, yeah, and I did a double bill with another movie that I'm going to save to talk about next week that was also very good.
Nice.
So stay tuned next week to hear me talk about Operation Mincemeat.
Lovely. Great. All sounds
That's
amazing.
all. Yep, that's all my culture catch up. What have you got, Alex?
I only got a couple of films this week. I'm not on holiday yet, so I'm like, but yeah, only a couple of films. So I watched the new Netflix film, The Bubble.
Oh, you watched The Bubble?
I have watched The Bubble.
Okay.
It's a Netflix. Well, because I like Judd Apatow's films, and I thought it was going to be,
I'm not judging you for watching The Bubble. It's fine to watch it.
And it's got a great cast.
It's
got a great cast, really varied. It's got Karen Gillian, Iris Apatow, which is Judd Apatow's daughter, Fred Armisen, who I love him in everything. I think he's funny. Maria Bakalova, that we've seen in Borat. David Duchovny, how do you call him? Duchovny.
Duchovny.
Oh, Duchovny. David Duchovny.
David Ducknose.
Well, in Italian we call him David Duchovny or something.
Interesting.
Keegan Michael Kay, Peter Serafinowicz, Rob Delaney, Leslie Mann, Pedro Pascal. Yes, etc., etc.
Wow! Imagine pulling all those people together. That could only result in classic genius filmmaking. I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I talk about the genius of filmmaking, quickly, the plot is called The Bubble, and is a group of actors are called to this mansion for this what's it called, for this I think it's a series of films called Cliff Beasts, and they have to film Cliff Beast number 6.
Yes, because very funnily, when this movie was being promoted before they put out the trailer for The Bubble, they put out posters and trailers and things for Cliff Beast 6, acting as if everybody knew what that was. Very funny stuff. Very hilarious gag.
And because there is COVID, they all have to go to this mansion and all stay in this bubble. Of course, if you put a lot of actors in together in a mansion, all hell might break loose. There'll be drug take, arguments, hands chopped off, people trying to escape, and a film that is not made.
Oh, did you mention Gus Kahn earlier?
No, I didn't mention Gus Kahn because I don't know him.
He's got a big beard and he's very, very funny.
Yeah. I know. Like, I don't know who he is. Like, I've never seen him in anything else.
Oh, well, he's like a rising star of British comedy. He's very good.
Oh, fantastic.
He was on a season of Taskmaster.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't know him because I'm not in the UK anymore. And it's basically this, really. They're trying to make a film. So what I liked about the film at the beginning is the fact they included COVID in it. So they included the pandemic, masks. They're wearing masks in the film. So at one point, Karen Gillian meets her I don't know, manager, publicist, PA, I have no idea who he is, Rob Delaney, and they meet in a restaurant and then she arrives with the mask on. So I started strong in a way because it brought kind of current affairs into the film. When everybody gets to this mansion, everybody has to do a swab, a COVID test, and everybody has to go in quarantine. So it kind of started well.
Oh, yeah.
So it was trying to be a satire.
Mm-hmm.
The main problem is that the funniest bits were in the trailer.
Classic.
Yeah, and it's 2 hours and 6 minutes long. And there was some laugh, like, the thing is, I like all those actors and it was nice to see them. But 2 hours and 6 minutes of this was way too much. It was not funny enough. It was not intelligent enough. If you want to be satire, at least a sort of intelligence. You need a sort of intelligence.
Yeah.
It was very repetitive. So we saw them being in quarantine for 2 weeks when they started the movie, but then they had to go in quarantine again. But why do we need that? Like, it's a film. Like, those 20 minutes could have been cut. It was very. It was just a plateau of nothingness. It was not funny. It just wasn't good, and I'm disappointed because I like Judd Apatow's style. It just didn't work, and it's a shame. And I feel like maybe they felt that it wasn't working because they weren't very good in the film, in any of them. And it's a real shame because I think it could have been good if it was like half an hour less, a good 90-minute comedy.
Yeah.
Where they did a little bit of, we've got COVID, we do the bubble, the problems with the bubble, but there was too much. It was too long. I don't know what's this thing about having 2-hour films for no reason.
Well, it's Judd Apatow, isn't it? He just can't. All his films are too long. Like, even the ones I like, and I like Judd Apatow as well. I'm not criticising him. But even the films I like, they're all like 2 hours long because he lets his actors improvise and then he doesn't know how to cut the good bits in without leaving all the sort of fat around the edge. Like, if somebody does something that's very, very funny in improv, but then they come up with a better line, you can still just have you don't have to include both lines. Like in that, in Knocked Up, when this is not, you would not do this in a film now, but there's that scene. Have you seen Knocked Up?
Yeah.
There's a scene where I think it's Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen are doing "Do you know how I know you're gay?" jokes, which is not okay. But equally, I feel like that scene goes on for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because both of those very funny people came up with what was at the time considered lots of very, very funny lines around that idea. You don't need to include all of them. You just include the funniest ones and then stop and move on. So yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like the funniest thing Judd Apatow has done this year continues to be when he tweeted that Will Smith could have killed Chris Rock at the Oscars. and then very quickly deleted it when he realised that was an insane thing to say.
Yeah. But and the thing is, when you have a group of amazing English actors and a group of American actors, like in comedic style, the British actors will win because their subtlety, their funny bits. So it was also like a lot of like mismatching. Peter Serafinowicz is amazing with he's quite he's funny but in a very subtle way. Yeah. Whilst American comedy is a little bit more slapstick.
Also, are there American comedians in this, or are they just because like David Duchovny and
no?
Who else that's big is in this film? They're sort of more actors, aren't they?
Yeah. So
Pedro Pascal, for example, and David Duchovny and Pedro Pascal are both capable of being very funny, but they're not comedy improv specialists in the way that Peter Serafinowicz and Guz Khan Could
I
be
guess
considered
Keegan Michael Kay, he's
yeah,
a comedian.
yeah.
And I liked seeing him. I think he was quite funny. The person though that every time she was in the scene made the movie actually quite nice to watch, it was Maria Bakalova.
Yeah, of course. She's incredible.
She's amazing. She turned the scenes in a really funny, sweet way. And every time she's in, like, I would tell you to watch this film just for the scenes that she's in, because you'll go, she's here, and there's not enough of her in the film.
I mean, she showed in Borat 2 that she was capable of being better at improvising than Sacha Baron Cohen, who is famously probably about the best in the world at that. So that doesn't surprise me that she can really do well in a Judd Apatow movie.
Yeah, so I would tell you, watch this film or just fast forward to the scenes where she's in it, because she made the film bearable. Because it was just so, at one point I was like, is it going to finish? And then, when you click and it was like 50 minutes left. It's like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know if I can do another hour with this. And that was after an hour. I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. So it wasn't good. I'm sorry, Judd Apatow. Because the concept, I think, could have been very nice.
Yeah.
A bubble, how COVID and having masks, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, what else have you got? What else have you watched?
Then I watched a film from 2017, which I had. Yes, I know.
That's
not
too
current,
old.
I know, but I just needed to watch it, and I've been meaning to watch it for ages, and I haven't. And I was like, I just need to watch something that I know is going to be good.
Well, Alex, I'll allow it this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I watched the 2017 biographical sports black comedy, I, Tonya.
Ah, okay, cool.
Have you seen it?
No.
I, Tonya stars the fantastic Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, which seems to be like, it's just like, why is it everywhere? Like I've only seen him in the Marvel films, and then suddenly he's done Pam and Tommy, Fresh, and then I saw him in this, was like, I've never seen him anywhere else, but never mind. Alison Janney, who is amazing, and other people that I don't really know, apart from Bobby Cannavale, who is always a policeman in places.
He's the guy that's in Ant-Man, right? Is that Bobby? Yeah, he is always a policeman.
Yeah, he's always a policeman, but this time he's a reporter. I don't know if he's a good actor. I don't know. He's okay, and it's just the story about competitive ice skater Tonya Harding, and the events that happened where another skater got hit. One of her competitors got hit, and the story around it. The film at the beginning, a bit like Spencer, says it's based on contradictory and true interviews. So this film is you have to make up what you feel about who's done what.
Yeah.
And I like that, because there's these interviews were actually made, and like in Tammy Faye, because I think you watched Tammy Faye recently.
I did. I will be talking about that next week.
Yeah, like in Tammy Faye, the interviews are made by actors, but the interviews are actually real interviews with Tonya Harding and her husband and her mother, and they used they used the interviews, but also they used the actors to do the interviews, and so you need to decide for yourself if you think that this is a true story or it's not a true story, and or is something that has been invented by these interviews from these people that have been interviewed, and it's funny, It's really amazingly acted by Margot Robbie. Of course, she's amazing in it, and everybody's really good in it. Even Sebastian Stan, he plays her husband, who is a horrible man, and I don't, kind of pretty, kind of matches his energy, which is good.
He,
And,
the guy that directed I, Tonya, was involved in Pam and Tommy, which is possibly the connective tissue between his roles in both films, if that makes sense. Yeah.
But also the director directed Cruella, I think.
Yes. he did,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a really interesting directing style, and they break the fourth wall quite a lot towards the end. When so the beginning, it's kind of like the interviews are the ones that are talking to you about the events, but the more the film goes on, the more the actors break the fourth wall and they start talking to you about how the events are going. And so
that's
I
cool.
find that a really interesting directing style. And when the interviews are going on, there's a different aspect ratio, and then when the film goes on, the aspect ratio changes. So
Yeah.
it's a nice, it's about 2 hours like The Bubble, but it kind of goes quite quickly because it's changes and it's interesting, it's funny. The events are a little bit muddled up because you're not really sure who's telling the truth, who's done
Yeah.
what, and it's an interesting way to do a biopic, because you're like, well, this could be true, this could be not, but through the entire film, they remind you of that by them telling the three of them telling different stories, the four of them, because also there's her bodyguard, played by Paul Walter Hauser, who is hilarious. And yeah, there's these four different accounts of what happened, and it's interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I think is a really good way to make a biopic. I know you're not a fan of biopics, but I think you might.
No, but like a
enjoy this
biopic
one.
that is honest about how, because nothing can tell the truth. Like
No.
even I was thinking about this earlier, especially when I was watching The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Not even a documentary is the truth. A documentary filmmaker takes footage of an event, or takes interviews about an event, takes all the material they have, which could be 100 hours, and they from that sculpt, like a sculptor makes a statue. They cut away and cut away and cut away until they find a story, and then they tell a story. The story doesn't necessarily reflect reality, because the things that you leave out and omit could completely alter the perception of all the characters involved and what's happening. So I just prefer it when, like Spencer, and I guess like with I, Tonya, when a film is willing to accept and be honest about the fact that it is not necessarily a true account of what happened, because it can't be.
Yeah.
And when a biopic just wants to win an Oscar and isn't interested in being honest about the story, and just wanting to make you cry about how sad it was that somebody was unfairly killed or whatever, I don't like that, because I just don't. What's the point in that? We're not being honest about.
Yeah.
You're just telling me a story and then claiming, oh, this is Alan Turing. I've not seen the Imitation Game, but the point is, I don't like it when they just tell a story and then claim that it's a true story.
Yeah.
Instead of being honest and saying, this is what these sources claim is the story, and it's an interesting story, so here it is.
Yeah.
Does that make...
No, that definitely makes sense. And I think I appreciate that more as well than just a biopic that says that this is how.
Or when it outright lies and knows it's lying because the story is better. Lie, but tell me that you're lying. And frankly, isn't that a more interesting movie? To be honest about the lie than it is to just, like A Beautiful Mind, the Russell Crowe movie, for example, is another one that just completely omits huge things about like awful opinions this guy had. And it changes the film, because it makes this real life character look like an amazing man, when in fact he was a complicated and problematic guy. Like we all are complicated and problematic. No one is perfect, and I hate it when movies try to create perfection or try to show people who are perfect. And I, Tonya seems like a movie that doesn't do that, and tries to take an honest account of Tonya Harding, who is a complicated and controversial person.
Oh, it's so complicated. Like, I don't think we'll ever know exactly what happened there, because at one point she says something in the interview she says, I don't know, something, and then he says, no, that did not happen in another interview.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's kind of like they're contradicting themselves in the film. And
Yeah.
I thought, and so we will never know what happened, but I know she got the rough end of the stick, poor girl, because she could never skate again.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's like the men got like 2 years in prison, and she got banned from skating. Like, I think she got the worst. Like, whatever happened, she got the worst sentence. But it's I think by the end you do feel sorry for her. Even though she probably did a bad thing, but you should be. It's an interesting biopic. I liked it. And that is it for my culture catch up for this week.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's roll straight on into a couple of MyTubes. I have a couple of trailers to share with you, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
2 things that you might find interesting. So, did you get the link?
Yeah.
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 Are you ready to go?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I got distracted, sorry.
I know. Yeah, I could tell.
Could you see? Okay, I'm ready.
Are you sure?
So George sent me a link for our trailer. Another Apple TV trailer. An Apple TV movie like Coda.
Except it's a series.
Oh, it's a series called Raw. And from the image, I can see is that Nicole Kidman?
It is Nicole Kidman, yes.
Oh, so starring Nicole Kidman. Let's go.
Amongst others, for sure. So, yeah, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, Nicole Kidman is looking at a picture. She's sat. Oh, now she's eating the photo. Oh, Glow.
I don't want you to go. Don't go.
Ah, is she? I know who she is. Oh, wow, I like the cast. I can't tell you all the names, though, because I am... there are a lot of people.
Is it for your golf trophies? It's for you.
Oh, she's... Tell me the name.
I don't know her name. I don't remember her name. Betty Gilpin?
Issa Rae.
It's all right.
I don't understand why you guys aren't answering any of my questions.
I love Issa Rae.
You're not saying
I'm going to enjoy this.
There's a lot of photos missing.
I ate them.
What?
So she ate... Nicole Kidman is eating all the photos because she is giving her something. Ah, she's from England.
Marcel.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. And I can't talk anymore. Sorry, there's too much to.
There's a lot going on in this trailer, to be fair.
Alison Brie.
Alison Brie.
So there are 2 actors from Glow, Alison Brie and another one, which I don't know her name.
I met someone. Oh my god. Is he married? No. Do you want dessert?
I really like this actress. She met a duck.
That's a risky move. Promising bedtime.
Oh, there's the guy from New Girl.
Yeah.
I don't know any names. There are too many people. Okay, Nicole Kidman, Cynthia Erivo, Issa Rae, Merit.
Witchcraft mainly.
Wow.
I'm a ghost. Why am I still getting cramps? Oh!
Is it?
So
this looks interesting.
yeah, what do you think?
I have no idea what is it about.
Well, I think it's an anthology show, and each of those are separate episodes.
Ah, okay.
Right, so there's one episode about a woman who eats photographs. There's one episode about a woman who's kept on a shelf. There's one episode about a woman who finds bite marks on her skin. There's an episode about a woman who returns her husband. So it's all stories of different women, but with seemingly with a quite a surreal stint, maybe a satirical slant to it in some way, commenting on.
I want to watch it.
The world. I thought you'd find it interesting. It looks It looks like something. It's got quite the cast.
Yeah.
It's based on a book by Cecilia Ahern, who's an Irish novelist. A short story collection she wrote. Interesting.
I really want to watch it.
Yeah, well, I've just looked up the short story collection it's based on, and there are 30 stories in that, so there's definitely room for them to do multiple seasons if they wanted to.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. I recently got Apple TV again because there's been a couple of things on it that I want to watch, so I'll hold on to it to see that. So exciting. Right, you ready for number 2?
Yeah.
Okay. See what you make of this.
Okay, so the second trailer George sent me is called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Okay, A24, of course.
Of course. Are you ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm making like a little documentary.
Oh, it's like a movie, but nobody has any lines, and nobody even knows what it is while they're making it.
That looks cute.
No?
It's like 2 shells with shoes.
Yep.
And an eye.
Tell me about what's life
And
like.
there's an A24 film.
It's pretty much common knowledge that it takes at least 20 shells to have a community.
Oh.
My cousin fell asleep in a pocket, and that's why I don't like the saying everything comes out of the wash. Because sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes it does, and they're just like a completely different person. So it's actually
So they're
only
these
2
shells
of us
that live in a
now.
house,
Myself
and
my
they are
grandmother and
computer
we like to
animated,
watch
but
the
everything
2
else
minutes
is
because
normal,
Leslie Stahl.
like real.
Nana, make the noise. Sometimes
Nana has to
I
make a
find my mind
noise.
wandering, thinking, what would my family think? Do you think they could be out there?
Oh, it's a lonely shell that hasn't got a friend.
Just take the adventure. Okay, let's do it.
And so he's trying to find his family.
Marcel,
The shell that shook the world.
looking for my family.
Oh. So people have to help Marcel to find his family. Marcel the shell.
Marcel, how long has it been since you've seen your family?
I couldn't tell you, but a space in my heart gets bigger and louder every day.
Dean, do you know how long?
That's 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Oh.
There's so many places that they could be.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on. You are beautiful.
There must be so many others like me. He has got to go.
Oh.
Not that I don't
Looks
like
like a
Arthur.
lovely
No, oh my God.
film
No.
about shells. Aw.
So that's Jenny Slate voicing Marcel.
Jenny Slate.
You know, she was in the film you watched recently, a romantic comedy with Charlie Day called I Just Want.
Yeah. I like her.
So I think Jenny Slate made some short films for YouTube years ago, maybe a decade ago, about Marcel the Shell that I had never heard of before, but I think people really liked. And then they announced a film, and it's taken a long time, but now it's coming, and it looks very heartwarming and weird.
Aw, nice.
Yeah, nice. So that's Marcel the Shell with shoes on. That's Raw.
I like it.
Yeah, so that's our MyTube, I think, for this week. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. So shall we roll on into our main topic for today?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about...
Right. Go.
We're gonna talk about the worst person in the world. No, not Tony Blair. It's a film.
It is a film.
Yeah.
Called The Worst Person in the World.
Yeah. No, not Tony Blair.
Oh, sorry.
It's a film called The Worst Person in the World.
You're weird.
Directed by Joachim Trier. Do you think I'm pronouncing that right? Joachim?
Yeah, Joachim. Yeah.
Joachim. It's the third and final film in his Oslo trilogy, which is also made up of Reprise from 2006 and Oslo 31st of August from 2011, neither of which I've seen. Have you seen either of those? No. Okay.
No, I would like to watch them though after reading about this film. So
Yeah, definitely. I assume you watched this film as well, rather than...
Yeah, I've watched this film.
It stars, again, I really apologise for mangling names here, Renate Rainsve as Julie, Anders Danielson Lee as Axel, and Herbert Nordrum as Eivind. They're our sort of main three characters. It did pretty well this year. It's got a 96% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and 87% audience score. So it's a hit. It's a certified hit with critics and audiences, and has been nominated for many, many awards over the past year, including at the recent Academy Awards Best Original Screenplay and Best International Feature Film. And Renate Rainsve won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival last year for her role in this movie. Very much deserved. And she also
absolutely
topped Alex's 2022 performance review.
Yeah.
So, before we talk about it in much more detail, I thought it would be good to read out the statement that the director made about the film to kind of set up what the themes of the movie are. So he said, "For a long time, I have wanted to make a film about love, one that goes a bit deeper than normal on-screen love stories, where everything is so simple, the story so clear-cut, the feelings so admirably unambiguous. A film that will look seriously at the difficulties of meeting someone when you're struggling to figure out your own life. At how irresolute and uncertain even the most rational and otherwise self-confident people can become when they fall in love, and how complicated it is, even for romantics, when they actually get what they have been dreaming about." Which I think does sort of cover the film. Yeah?
Yeah.
In broad strokes, the film chronicles 4 years in the life of Yuli, a young woman who navigates the troubled waters of her love life and struggles to find her career path, leading her to take a realistic look at who she really is.
Yeah.
And it's split up into a prologue, 12 chapters, and an epilogue.
Yes.
Yeah, which, first of all, what did you think of that sort of structure to the film? It's a bit unusual.
I quite like when films divide themselves, because I think then you have a little break and you can like move on to another moment.
Yeah.
So I like when films put in compartments like different moments, and you can kind of grow and evolve with the film.
Yeah, because I think a film like this is trying to give a true account of a set, not of a real person, but trying to accurately show somebody's life is impossible to do over the course of 2 hours, because people are more complicated than can be brought across in 2 hours. So when a film wants to do that, I think it does help it to kind of chunk itself up into chapters like this, and be honest with the audience about the fact that you are seeing snapshots of this person's life as they go through difficult periods or interesting periods of their life. And I thought it was interesting how the film doesn't necessarily, like, some of the chapters just sort of, they're almost like little sketches, and then other chapters suddenly it'll be, well, here's a really important sort of defining moment in her life, and you kind of get a mix of the two things. Like, there's probably a version of this movie that's about a half an hour shorter that cuts out things like chapter 3, oral sex in the age of #MeToo.
Yeah.
But that's quite a important moment, I think, but not necessarily to the overarching plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I thought we could go through it chapter by chapter briefly and just talk about what we thought of the different sections, and then have a little final chat about what we thought of the movie. So, it opens with a prologue that I really liked, because the main chunk of the movie is 4 years in the life of Yuli. But what they want to do straight away is help you to understand how she got to where she is, because I guess it's sort of like 28 to 32 is where we join her, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's exactly that, but it's that transition from your 20s to your 30s that the film seems concerned with. So in the prologue, we see her as a younger woman, and the film very quickly tells us that she's a very hard worker. She's a grade A student. She does very well in life, and she works very hard. Yeah. And she's at medical school to become a doctor, and she's going to be a surgeon. But she has an epiphany. Yeah. She realizes surgeons are just like carpenters. Which, interestingly, Renee Rensby is a carpenter in real life. So she compares surgery to carpentry, and that her real interest is in what's going on inside people's minds, which is less predictable and more sort of up for interpretation. So she decides instead to become a psychology student and go and study psychology. And her mother's like, well, as long as you're enjoying it, then do that. Yeah. As long as you're happy, then you go off and do that. And she breaks up with her surgeon boyfriend because she needs to move into a new phase of her life and start again. So then she starts studying psychology, and she starts going out with one of her professors. And while taking photos together and taking selfies together, she starts looking for her camera roll and realises actually what she's really interested in is photography. Yeah. And again, she tells her mother, no, I want to become a photographer. And her mother again is sort of like, well, as long as you're happy, which is a very supportive way for a parent to be. Which,
I love it.
Yeah, well done. So she decides to become a photographer. So she starts going out with a model. And then when she's out with the model, she meets Axel, who is a very famous, I guess, within, the world of literature, comic book artist. Who's 15 years older than her, but they hit it off and they begin a relationship, and he tries to break up with her. Does that happen in chapter? Well, no, this is still in the prologue, isn't it? He tries to break up with her, but there's something she says sort of like, this is the point where she realised she loved him, is when he says, I want to break up with you.
So they have a one night stand, and he has this spiel. He says some bull crap about something about, if you stay here, I'm going to fall in love with you. And then she leaves the house, and then she goes, well, that's the moment I fell in love with him. And she goes back. Yeah. And, yeah.
But ultimately, maybe he kind of was right.
What?
Well, she does end up leaving him, doesn't she?
Yeah. What he says at the beginning kind of materializes later.
But I guess there's the argument about whether that's still a valuable part of her life, and she still learned and grew through that relationship. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I think they admit near the end of the movie, at least he admits to her, and I think you can tell that it's probably true for her as well, that that's probably the most important relationship he's had in his life is with her. The comic book that he's famous for drawing looks horrible.
Yeah, it does. It was just like, oh god. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people between the age of 25 to 30 can relate to this, or women, I don't know, but to this prologue.
What, in terms of which element, the relationship element, or the changing your...
The relationship element, and the fact that she wants to be this, she wants to be that, she wants to be the other.
Yeah.
Because she's got the emotional support and probably the financial support from her parents, she can change...
At least one of her parents.
One of her parents, yeah. She can chop and changes. I think a lot of people in their 20s, between 25 and 30, are wondering what the hell to do after university, having had their life planned until university, and then you get vomited out into the real world, and you're supposed to be choosing your life ambition, and then you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And you and I think I don't know, I really related to this character. In this sense,
yeah. No, I definitely relate to that idea. I mean, I went to university and dropped out and changed courses and stuff, so I did very similar things to that.
And then at 27 we moved to Japan because we didn't know what we wanted to do. It just kind of like.
And then the movie sort of when we go to chapter 1, The Others, and we've skipped ahead a few years. I think they're a good couple of years into their relationship at this point. And we see them spending a weekend at what, according to this plot synopsis I got from Wikipedia, is his parents' house, which I didn't realise.
No, but it's friend's house.
Apparently it's his parents' house.
But those are all his friends, aren't they?
It's his brother.
Oh, is that his brother?
Yeah, the woman who hits her head on the lamp is his sister-in-law, I think.
I didn't realize that was his brother. I thought they were just friends. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it changes too much, but and it's possible that this Wikipedia synopsis is wrong.
Yeah.
But it says the synopsis I'm using from Wikipedia says that they are at his parents' house.
Yeah.
And I guess that because the children are like his nieces and nephews that we see.
Yeah.
His sister-in-law struggling to encourage one of them to go to bed in an early scene.
Yeah.
And I guess this chapter really serves to set up, to highlight the age difference between the two, between Julie and Axel, and to highlight the different things that they want from life at that point. He very much wants to begin starting a family because he's in his early 40s at this point, where she's in her late 20s and she doesn't really want to start a family and have children.
And her brother and his brother and her sister-in-law, they ask questions. Oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? How do you want to do? What are your life plans? What's going to happen? I have had, and do you remember people asking those questions to you?
Yeah, it's very rude.
That age,
none of your business.
It's none of your business. But at the time, you think it's okay because they're older than me.
Yeah.
And
I hate people who've got that attitude of like, oh, what's your plan in life? And what are you going to do? And like hassling younger people about.
Yeah.
Just let them live.
And the thing is, like, I felt this film just shocked me because I was like, I've been there, and so many people probably have been in that situation where like they have patronizing adults, or maybe they're not patronizing. Maybe they wanna know what you want to do. As a nicety to have a conversation with you, but at the same time, remember when you were 25 and you didn't have a bloody clue of what you wanted to do, and when they're in this house with this wine and these older people and she's there, and I was like, oh my god, I felt like I've been there, and it's weird. And now I'm in that age of 35, and I'm better not ask any 25-year-olds what the hell they want to do with their lives. Yeah. I don't want to be that 37-year-old that goes, hey, so what do you want to do with your life? You know?
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think that's why this film is amazing, because in this scene when even the brother goes, don't ask those questions. You used to think they were rude, and now you're asking them. Yeah. It's like, don't ask don't have that conversation. Let people do what the hell they want to do in their time, because we're not all on the same path. We're not all doing the same thing. And if somebody's doing something different, don't question why they're doing something different. Interest yourself in what they're doing rather than what they're not doing.
I agree.
But yeah, so this scene was like, oh my god. Wow. And she seems so bored. Oh no.
I'd have been bored.
And the only time they have fun. Yeah.
The only time they have fun, it all ends in disaster. Not even disaster. Someone bumps their head and makes a big deal out of it. Yeah. And you overhear that argument. Yeah. It's just like, oh god, people are terrible.
Yeah.
Seems like a horrible party. Right, chapter 2 then, which is called Cheating.
Chapter 2, cheating.
Yeah.
So when you read the chapter 2 cheating, you're straight away like, oh my god, something is going to happen, and you're waiting for the entire chapter to have something to happen.
Yeah, it's quite intense as well. To this is only chapter 2, and we're already at cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we kind of we didn't mention actually that the film initially opens with Yuli sort of dressed up in evening wear, smoking on a balcony, and then it cuts to the prologue, etc. In chapter 2, we rejoin Yuli in that scene, and we find out that she's at a publishing event for Axel's new book, where we see some people who don't look like they belong with the rest of the people there come up to him and ask him if he's going to draw any more of his comic book, and he's very much like, no, I'm not. And she clearly hates it and isn't having a good time there.
Yeah.
And again, it probably would be to be kind of the partner of somebody incredibly successful, but not have your own life sorted. I can imagine that would be quite tricky to be like at a publishing event for him, and you'd end up feeling quite sidelined. So I kind of understand why she because she's 15 years younger than him. She shouldn't be expected to be. But again, it's similar to the party where you can tell that people there are like, who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you? What's your sort of, what are you contributing?
Yeah.
So she leaves, and on the way home, she decides to crash a wedding reception.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. Yeah. And we get what probably for me is the best sequence in the movie. Where she meets Eyvind. Who's a barrister, and she kind of has an immediate connection with him.
A barista, not a barrister.
Sorry, barista.
If he's a barrister, if he's a barrister, he's a lawyer.
He's a barista. Sorry, he's a barista. He makes coffees. He works in a bakery. They very quickly hit it off and clearly have a connection. She admits to him immediately that she's not there, and she discloses to him at this point she's not there for anyone. She doesn't know anyone there, and she also discloses to him at this point that she hates those questions of like, what are you doing? Where are you going, etc. What's your job? So they don't really ask each other those questions, but they spend the night getting to know each other, and they have a conversation about like what counts as cheating, and they start pushing the boundaries as to, and they share they have an emotional connection throughout this entire sequence that I think you would like if either of they know that if either of their partners saw the connection that they're forming between themselves, they would consider it cheating, because you can cheat on somebody emotionally, which I think is probably what's going on here. And they watch each other go to the toilet in one scene. They drink from each other's drinks. They're sort of very physically intimate, like in terms of like the closeness of each other and stuff. And it is like, and the chemistry between the two actors sells it completely. Yeah, they're incredible. And they leave. This chapter ends with them both only having exchanged first names at the end of the night when the party's over, returning to their own lives, intending to never see each other again. Will that be the case? Spoiler, no. But what did you think of this chapter?
Of course not. I was. It was kind of electrifying if you think about it, because they're like pushing the boundaries without actually doing the deed of cheating.
Yep.
But it was their chemistry was amazing. It was really beautiful to watch. It's just an amazing scene. I really enjoyed that, and the easiness of everything. She goes in this wedding reception and she dances and they see each other and they form a connection and they spend the night talking. It's just so, in a way, that maybe her home life hasn't been too interesting with her boyfriend, and so you can feel that and him with his girlfriend, because they both have boyfriends and she's got a boyfriend and he's got a girlfriend, and they're both finding a little bit of an escape from that in this night, which then ends and could stay like a nice memory in the past, or will come back at some point.
Indeed. And then we get to chapter 3, which I mentioned before, which is called Oral Sex in the Age of #MeToo, and is one of the shorter chapters in the movie. But Yuli writes a blog post about feminism and sex, and she shares it with Axel, who really likes it and encourages her to post it online, and people like it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the extent of it, but it's showing her. It's mentioned throughout the movie that she's interested in writing, but never particularly. It's always this thing that's sort of on the edge of where she might go, but she doesn't seem focused on it.
I like this chapter, even though it's not very long.
Oh, yeah.
If you take that out of, although, later on, then she'll have the same kind of conversation with, what's his name? Arvin,
yeah.
Ivan.
Ivan.
I liked it because it kind of goes from cheating, where it's really intense, to this one, which is kind of like nice and mellow, and life goes on, and we carry on with our normal lives, and nothing has happened.
Yeah, and there is a scene later on in the movie where something she's written, Ivan reads something she's written, and it's played very differently. And I guess it's sort of having this scene early on in the movie kind of demonstrates what issues there might be later on. So no, it is a really good scene, and I'm glad it's in the movie. And then we go, our own family is where she's turning 30. She's celebrating her 30th birthday. With Axel at her mother's home. Her mother's divorced.
Yeah.
So it's just Yuli, Axel, Yuli's mother, and Yuli's grandmother. And Yuli's father doesn't come, claiming that he's injured his back, so he can't, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's part of this scene where we see a potted history of the women in Yuli's family. Yeah, in her mother's lineage, and we kind of we're told what each of her like her great grandmother, her great great grandmother, her great 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 grandmother, like what they were doing at 30, and it goes far enough back to be like, well, she was dead by 30 because their life expectancy in the 1700s was so low. And it's fascinating to think that, there was a time when women in particular, by the age of 30, their life was done. They had 5 children, and they were just waiting. To move on, basically, whereas Yuli still hasn't really started her life, is how she seems to feel at that point in it. And that's to be celebrated in a way, the ability for people to be more independent, I think.
Absolutely.
And make their own choices,
and and for women not to be baby makers.
Absolutely. Then Yuli and Axel make the trip to go and see her father because he didn't come to her birthday, so that they have to go to him. And there's a very, very awkward scene where her father just seems like a jerk.
An asshole. Yes.
An asshole, yeah. Yuli's got a half sister, and it becomes apparent throughout the conversation that when he didn't go to her 30th birthday, it was actually because he was watching the half-sister play football and not because of his injury to his back. And then he talks about what the reason he can't come and visit her on her birthday or other times is because it's really difficult to park near where they live.
Yeah.
And Axel starts to get a bit... Axel's like, hang on, wait a minute, is that why you're not visiting us? Because of parking? And he's like, well, I'd have to move the car every 30 minutes. And I think Axel wants to be like, no, there's solutions to all this. Is ridiculous. And they kind of go home, and it was obviously not a very good visit. And on the way home, Axel, they discuss that, they need to make their own family. It's not for them to be. She shouldn't be trying to make her dad be a good dad, basically. Like, if he's going to be a terrible dad, then maybe just leave him to it and make your own life. Again, similar to chapter 3, actually, it's a bit more of a sort of just giving us some background on Yuli and just a bit more sort of texture to the story, but not necessarily plot heavy. Whereas chapter 5, Bad Timing, is where the plot sort of kicks into gear. We see Yuli at the bookstore that she works at. And who should walk in but Ivan?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and she kind of...
Ah! Are you going to speak to him?
And she watches him she watches him sort of terrified, like a rabbit in headlights, not knowing what to do, and is then distracted as a woman asks her for a book called, I think the book's called Green Yoga.
Yeah.
Which they don't
straight
have.
away. I was like, that's his girlfriend. Like, straight away.
Oh, I did not pick up on that.
I was like, it must be because I was like, it must be because I don't know why. Maybe because he was saying about, I think they spoke about their partners at one point. I'm pretty sure he said something that she was really into green stuff and the environment, and so I was like, oh, that must be his girlfriend. And
She is. Very quickly it becomes clear that she is.
Yeah.
But when Ivan comes over to rejoin his girlfriend, he sees that she's talking to Yuli, and he looks absolutely astonished when he sees that it's her. And they both try to hide their reactions from the girlfriend, and then they both leave, and Ivan runs back in saying he's forgotten his sunglasses, and sort of immediately makes a play for I need to see you again kind of thing. But she's a bit like, well, your girlfriend's right there, so maybe not. And then we see Yuli and Axel having dinner together with Axel's brother, where they're discussing the upcoming film adaptation of his rubbish comic book, which sounds like it's been turned into a rubbish film. And he just sits there complaining about the comic and how they've changed it and they've taken away the anus of the cat in the comic and stuff like this. And I think Yuli's just so intensely bored. That she decides to leave Axel, and we get this pretty great central set piece of the movie. Where she sort of comes down in the morning, says good morning to him, and then he's pouring her a coffee and it just stops. And she runs out into the road, and time has stopped. Everyone has stopped. No one is moving. And you see her kind of run through the streets of Oslo to this bakery that he's told her he works in. Ivan, this is. And she walks through the door, and he's the only person in the world still moving. And they go on a date and fall in love. But it's all her fantasy, and then it cuts back to Axel pouring her the cup of coffee, and she kind of realises that, similar, I guess, to the prologue, where she realizes she's got to chase a different sort of muse. She realizes that she wants to see what could be with Axel. So, she leaves him, and it's kind of a horrible breakup. And Axel doesn't scream and yell; he just is devastated. What do you think of this scene?
Well, it felt like whilst in films you see a breakup where is either really dramatic or the other part, it cuts to them not being together anymore. It shows the different moments when you make the breakup real, where you talk, you argue, you move around the room, you go back and what people have said, and a constant conversation. That's what a breakup is about. It's not just a clear cut, oh well then we're done, because if not it'd be easy to break up with someone. But it shows how complicated it is, because there's so much history and shared experiences, and he's trying to convince her that they're perfect for each other, and I thought it was like a genuine portrayal of a breakup, and it was good. It was really sad as well, because it is sad. Because they kind of worked together, those two, but also he is much older, and she does not the person that she should be with. If she should be with anyone. But she decides she wants to try being with Ivan. And then we get to chapter 6. Chapter 6, the sort of halfway point, where it's called Finnmark Highlands, and we leave Yuli for a little while to learn about how Ivan has got to that point in the bookstore. Through his relationship with Sunniva, who is his current girlfriend. Where they go camping together. Sunniva in the morning wakes up and has a close encounter with a reindeer, which connects her with her. She feels a connection with the reindeer, which leads her to look into her heritage. She discovers that she is 3.1% Sami, Native American, or indigenous. Native indigenous of Lapland, Norway.
Norway.
So. Norway, Sweden, Finland. They were the indigenous people.
And this leads her to sort of become obsessed with climate change and the rights of indigenous people and sort of living a sustainable lifestyle, which Ivan, I think, initially supports, but ends up feeling quite restricted by. And this is the point at which he meets Yuli in the bookstore and is feeling like maybe he needs to change where he is in his life. What do you think of this sequence?
I thought it was good that they gave a little bit of background to him and his relationship with his ex-girlfriend.
What do you think of the way it portrays the girlfriend? Because it feels to me a bit judgmental of her or critical.
I didn't find it. I find it that like she felt like that was her way, and I feel like they weren't good for each other, but I didn't feel like he was critical of her. The thing that made
me feel that was maybe that it mentions that she's 3.1% Sami, which I feel like probably quite a few people that live in that area of the world would probably find that they are to some percentage related to the indigenous people of that area. And then,
but I guess it's still her, like Julia trying to find who you are, and in a way that's how she found it.
True,
like
but
we're all in the search of being who we all in the search of something, and I think maybe she found her way.
Yeah, yeah, way. But in conjunction with the following, I think it's the following chapter. Yeah, the following chapter, chapter 7, a new chapter where we see the ex-girlfriend's Instagram account. I feel like that all adds up to be quite probably critical of that character.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, because it's the next one. In the next chapter, they see the Instagram. Yeah. Maybe she's a little bit fickle, and maybe she's being portrayed that way. Yeah.
So in a new chapter, the next chapter, Yuli and Ivan moved in together, and he's obviously broken up with Sunniva, but Yuli discovers that he continues to follow her on Instagram. He claims because of her good yoga tips. She clearly thinks because there's lots of photos of her bottom, and Yuli says she doesn't mind because he's with her.
Yeah.
And that's the start of their sort of happy life together.
Yeah.
And then, again, that's quite a short one. And we move into chapter 8, which is called Yuli's Narcissistic Circus. And this chapter is bonkers.
Yeah.
It kind of exists in juxtaposition, comparison to the first chapter, where we see what it's like for Yuli to attend a party with Axel's family. We now see Yuli attend a party with Ivan's friends, where they discover his little stash of psychedelic mushrooms, and Yuli, for whatever reason, decides to consume a fair amount of them along with the rest of the group. After taking them, we see what we see in every film where people take mushrooms, which is initially them sitting around going, this isn't going to work, and then very suddenly it does work. And Yuli has an absolute vision where she sees herself as an old naked lady breastfeeding a child, and with all of her former lovers watching her, and she sees an animated bobcat, the main character of Axel's cartoon, takes her baby and puts it in a hot dog and eats it, which means something, I imagine. And then she sees her father, and she throws a tampon covered in blood at her father. Yeah. And then eventually, finally, she wakes up and she does have blood all over her face.
Yeah.
Which she doesn't realise until Ivan comes in with a coffee and tells her that maybe she should have a wash.
Yeah. You're only in her trip, nobody else's trip in this chapter.
Yeah, you see the
don't
others.
anybody else.
You see the others get affected by it, but you don't see their trips. You only see her trip.
Yeah.
What did you think of this?
It was interesting, and she clearly has an issue with her father, so she does confront him here.
It's interesting that I guess two of the big themes of the movie are her father and her views on having children, which both feature massively in this trip.
Yeah.
And it's actually, we didn't mention it, but when it was discussing earlier why her and Ivan worked together, it mentions that because quite a bit of his ex's environmental concerns have rubbed off on him, he also doesn't want to have children, and she likes that, and that's not going to be an issue in their relationship. But maybe, I think the reasons that they don't want children aren't necessarily the same, which might end up causing friction to some degree. Or at least I think that might be an early sign that they're not completely aligned in the way that they think they are.
Yeah. But I think because now she's over 30, and once you're a woman of over 30, people start asking when are you going to have children, and I think that's a big thing for every woman that has no real interest in having any children, and people question that, which is insane.
Yeah,
nobody's ever questioned you why you want kids. Why do you always have to question a woman? Why do you want kids?
Yeah.
Why haven't you got any kids? Or when are you going to have kids?
Yeah. Also,
it's a concern that you reach the age of 28 onwards, then that's the main question that people will ask you. Well, mind your own business.
Yeah, agreed.
And if you say, I don't like, and when it's amazing when you go, oh, well, maybe I don't want any, and people go, oh, you will want some someday.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think, has anybody ever asked you that question?
No.
Yeah, I've been asked that question so many times.
No, nobody's ever asked me that. So, after chapter 8, we get to chapter 9, which is called Bobcat Rex Christmas, which is the name of the Bobcat film that Axel has agreed to make. And this is, again, one of the shorter chapters. It takes place entirely in the gym. Yuli is exercising, and she sees on TV that Axel is being interviewed in preparation for the upcoming release of Bobcat Rex Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And
which, when she's exercising, well, you're not like, oh, why is she exercising? Oh, well, of course, she's over 30, so she started exercising. Like,
oh, I guess,
you've known everything about this girl for the past few years, and now she's in a gym exercising.
Yeah, very true.
Like, she's and so it's like, oh, well, she's changing. She's evolving constantly.
Yeah, we haven't seen her exercise up until this point, have we?
No,
that's true.
Why are you in a gym? Leave the gym.
And Axel is questioned on this chat show about the fact that his character is awful, sexist and misogynistic, etc.
Yeah.
And he goes into quite a big defense. He ends up calling the host of the show a whore, and she's obviously offended by that, and he's told off because that's not the correct. Even like there's a double thing of like that's offensive to say that to her, and also it's not the correct terminology either. And it sort of all serves to, I guess, emphasize he's much older than Julie still, and his comics were released in a time when you wouldn't be questioned about having a comic book character do those things, whereas now, and particularly I guess as the film that's being released based on it appears to be very much a children's film, he's being sort of asked to account for his previous work, and he defends it. It's an interesting defense because in some ways there are things he says that I would agree with, and there are things he says that you wouldn't agree with, and it's an interesting thing, and it's hard. It's interesting to imagine somebody who's created something that they don't feel is a fair reflection of who they are now, and they don't like being judged based on it, but equally they want it is a reflection of who they were at a time in their life, but that's true for a lot of people, and people are able to change, and should you hold that against them forever? And it's interesting. I really liked this scene.
Yeah, me too. I think it shows the fact that also you cannot have a debate about things. Like the interviewer was, no, this is wrong, this is that, and he was explaining
Yeah.
other things, and it kind of showed how you cannot have a debate anymore with having two points of view and trying to discuss them.
Yeah.
The interviewer was like, no, it's wrong, that's it, you can't do it, and he was like, well, no, wait, it was different, I was a different person, and it's satire. And although I don't like his satire, in a way I understand his point of view, and I was a little bit annoyed about the interviewer, but it's like that, you can't have a debate anymore, you can't have two different opinions and trying to discuss them. It was just kind of like how society is now. It's 50-50. No, if I don't agree with you, you're wrong, and I'm gonna shut you down, I think.
I agree. Yeah, it was a good chat. And again, similar to some of the other shorter chapters, you could take this out of the film, but I think it enriches the film to have it in here, and I like it. And it makes the film feel more like a novel that you're seeing rather than a film almost. And now we go to chapter 10. We're into the last three chapters, and these last three chapters are like just a 1, 2, 3 punch of horrible, depressing, sad events.
Yeah.
Which I think is a fairly decent sort of adaptation of what the first few years of anyone's 30s is like.
Yeah.
It's just unexpected, unpleasant, difficult events happening, and you having to deal with them. So in the first one, chapter 10, first person singular, Yuli sees Axel's brother at work, and Axel's brother tells her that Axel has cancer, pancreatic cancer that is inoperable, and he's going to die. Which obviously completely throws Yuli, is not something she expected. And during this sequence, there's the scene where Ivan finds a short story that Yuli had written, and he tries to talk to her about it and tries to talk about liking it, and it just brings up all of these things she's feeling about her relationship with him, and she blasts him for essentially being happy to be a barista and not have any goals in life, and not wanting to achieve anything. And it's just this horrible thing of she's found out that her old partner, who I think she mentions this when they initially break up, and I imagine it was always in the back of her mind of like, well, things might not be working out entirely with Ivan, but potentially I could go back with Axel, and probably discovering that no, that door is actually going to be closed is probably quite devastating for her, obviously devastating for Axel, and leads to this probably true accounting of where she is with Ivan and the fact that she isn't completely happy with him, and there are problems in that relationship as well. Devastating.
I think she really liked him also as a human rather than I don't know, I don't think it was ever how I felt. I don't think she was devastated because she could never go back with him. I think it's because she actually missed him as a person.
Yeah, but she does mention when
friend.
They break up that they might get back together.
Yeah. But I think after that, I think it's, I don't know, for me, I felt she was more interested in a friendship.
Next chapter is called Positive, and this chapter opens with her learning that she's pregnant, which is obviously a kind of huge event in her life and throws up decisions that she has to make. And the first decision she makes is to not tell Ivan and to visit Axel in the hospital, where they sort of go over how their lives have been.
I was devastated when she was pregnant. She was like, no, not yet. It's not time. No.
So they go and they have this discussion. She actually tells Axel that she's pregnant, and then asks, there's a really heartbreaking, upsetting moment where she asks him, she just outright says to him, tell me that I'd be a good mother. Which he does do so. And it's tough. It's a really tough scene of those two really connecting, and you see whether it is a friendship or a relationship that she hoped to go back to with him, that there is an incredibly strong connection between them that remains there, and it's obviously absolutely heartbreaking for her to see him in a much weakened state, and in these sequences, I think he's quite well known in Norway, the actor that plays Axel,
Mm.
is Anders Danielsen Lee,
Mm.
kind of really his performance is pretty incredible in these last few scenes that he's in.
Yeah.
And it really kind of sells the relationship between them. And yeah, it's tough. And then she goes back home. She tells Ivan finally about the pregnancy, and they decide to split up for now. And she's going to decide what she wants to do about what's happening. And that's the end of that chapter. When we come to chapter 12, the last chapter before the epilogue, where again it's sort of almost a continuation of chapter 11. This one, it feels much more like a lot of the other chapters. Kind of, it's almost like the movie is slowing down, like the gaps between chapters are almost getting shorter, because this almost follows straight on, where again we see Julie meet up with Axel again, and he takes her to the building that he grew up in, where he was inspired to become an artist. And he kind of, I think this is where he tells her that she's the most important relationship he's ever had, and that he'd like to carry on living with her, which he can't do. And there's this beautiful scene where he's showing her these tiny little panes of glass in the top of a window in the staircase of the flat in the building he grew up in, that are coloured in different colours, and he's kind of showing her that he used to look through those, and that would kind of, and it's kind of amazing to think that he was he can talk so beautifully about his inspiration, and then initially the thing he created was this really sort of rubbish comic book. And maybe he had much more to give to the world potentially, and he obviously had a career after it and stuff. And then she gets a voicemail that from Axel's brother, that Axel's condition is worsening, and she starts kind of walking through the streets of Oslo, considering the fact that probably this is his last night alive. But she doesn't go to see him, does she? She sort of lets him be with his family.
No.
Because I imagine there's a certain amount of guilt mixed in with everything else that she's feeling.
Can you imagine, like they break up and then he gets sick and he's, alone in a way, and because I think the only family he has is his brother, probably.
Yeah.
And so she probably feels like crap.
Yep.
Like the worst person in the world.
I get it. The only other kind of significant thing that happens in this chapter, which is, really significant, is that she's having a shower and she miscarries.
Yeah. I love that scene. Not because she's miscarries, it's her reaction to her miscarriage.
How does she react?
Simple. She smiles.
I suppose.
And I thought it was simple but effective, and it wasn't like in films when women miscarriage, and I'm sure it is a really painful thing to go through if that's what you really want. And usually if you see a film or television series, somebody miscarriages, it's like a tragic thing. Whilst this wasn't a tragic thing, because not every time it's something that it's a tragedy. Sometimes it's something that happens and you didn't want. So I think portraying a miscarriage that's something not as tragic, it's also a good way to, because you can feel okay about it. Of course you can feel bad about it, and if you do, I'm sorry, and that's the thing. But if you can also feel okay about it, you don't necessarily always have to be sad about having a miscarriage. And I think it was important to see and be portrayed. I'm 32. I'm single. My ex-partner has just. I broke up with my boyfriend. My ex-partner has died. No time for the kid, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
I felt like there was also an element of her not knowing if she did or didn't want. Like, I felt like there was a possibility that she would decide she wanted to keep it, and maybe part of her smile was to do with just that the choice she was struggling to make had been made for her. Yeah. And then we go into the epilogue of the movie, which is not bizarre and unexpected and really interesting. And we join her. We don't know how much time has passed, but a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Because she's working as an on-set photographer for a film shoot, sort of documenting the film, taking kind of continuity photos and things like that. And she sees an actress give a terrible performance in a scene.
Yeah.
And then she's asked to photograph the actress, and the actress asks her for, says, was I any good? And she sort of placates her and says she was, yeah. And she gives her some advice. I don't quite remember what she says to her, but then the important part is that she looks out, after leaving the photographer, she looks out the window at the front of the building and she sees the actress walk outside, and pushing a baby in a stroller is Ivan. And the actress walks up to Ivan and they're a couple, and he is with her after his decision to not want children has obviously changed. And again, similar to what we were talking about with Axel earlier in the interview, people do change their mind and people do change over the course of their lives. And, he's obviously decided to make this step in his life. There's no clear reaction. She just sees it, and then she goes back home to finish editing the photos, and we leave her at the age of 32, single and hopefully happy, having gone through some incredibly challenging and difficult things that have probably left her feeling like at times the worst person in the world. But I think what I love about this movie is that we've all done similar things. We've all had similar experiences. We're all the worst person in the world. And
absolutely.
We continue.
Yeah.
I really, this was a movie that, like, when I watched it, I was like, that's a 4-star movie. And then when it finished, I was like, they ended really well. That's a 4.5 out of 5. And then, like, a day later, I was still thinking about it. I was like, no, that was a 5 out of 5. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And there's so much to kind of dig into and think about and enjoy, in the way it's shot and filmed and written and directed and acted and performed. Just every element of it is working. And it's really amazing, and it got, it was rightfully recognised for lots of awards, and people love it, and it's had good reviews, and for good reason. Wonderful movie.
Yeah, it's a movie that actually stays with you, because I think a lot of people can relate to this film. A lot of people our age can relate to this film. 5 stars all around.
5 stars all around. Go and watch it. Go and see it. And that's The Worst Person in the World. Please watch it and let us know what you think of it.
Why did you like the movie so much? What was it that you liked about it?
I liked that it, I guess, and I talked about this earlier when you talked about Tonya, to link it all together, is that I like it when a movie is trying to, it's happy to be a movie. It's not trying to say this is a real series of events, because it's impossible for a 2-hour movie to display a real series of events. And I like a movie that doesn't judge its characters. It allows its characters to be characters, to exist in a morally grey world like we all do, and is kind of honest about who we all are, and that none of us are good, none of us are bad, we are just people. And to view people in singular terms of good and bad, like a standard romantic comedy sort of does. You've got the hero, you've got the villain who's trying to steal the girl, etc. To have a movie that shows the good and the bad in various different people and doesn't take sides is, I think, really mature and real cinema, and the sort of stuff I love about films that come out of places other than Hollywood, because you tend to often get more honest accounts of life. So, yeah, I loved it. Why did you like it so much?
Because we watched a romantic comedy a few months ago called Marry Me, and this is first of all, this is how real romance is, and I know you can have, and I think that you can have a romantic comedy like this, a romantic drama comedy like this, and show like the real struggle that love is. I love the reality of it. I agree exactly what you say about not judging the characters. Nobody's judging anyone there, and Julia makes mistakes, and everybody does, and Julia changes their minds, and everybody does. So let's remember that we are humans, and we evolve, and we change, and we can get better, we can get worse, and we can make mistakes, we can break hearts, we can have our heart broken, but not to but that's how we are, and not go, well, why don't you have a career? Why don't you have children? Why are you not following this path? We can do whatever we want, really. We have the freedom to be able to choose our own path. And I really liked her as a character because she did the things her own way. And I think she's a person that we need to aspire to be, in a way. Not self-doubting ourselves all the time. She pretty much knows that she needs to try and try and try. And if it doesn't work out, she'll do something else. But she's always ready to be able to believe in herself and try something new. And then, she becomes a photographer. But I don't think that's the end for her. I think she'll carry on doing other things and trying other things because she's not scared of trying. And that's why she's the worst person in the world, because she does not compromise, I think.
I agree.
Like, I saw myself a lot in the character, and I think I felt reassured in a way that I'm not weird,
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. And I felt it spoke to like our generation, and it spoke to me. So watch it. Watch this film.
Yes, please do watch this film. Equally, I would recommend that people also watch The Phantom of the Open and The Bad Guys, 2 excellent movies from my Culture Catch-Up this week.
Cool.
Do you have any recommendations from Culture Catch-Up?
Oh, Tonya. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, watch Tonya. Cool. And that has been The Worst Person in the World. But hopefully not the worst podcast in the world. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you as always. Please do find us on social media and come and join the conversation and tell us what you think about everything, and send us your lists and requests for episodes, and we'd love to hear from you. And you can find our link to our Instagram and our email and everything else, every other place you can find us, are in the show notes for this episode and every episode, along with links to what we discuss in Culture Catch-Up and the MyTube videos that we watch. So please do check those out. And it's been a great 68th episode. Join us next week for episode 69, where we will be doing a deep dive on an album again. We're going to be breaking down and chatting about our thoughts on the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Unlimited Love, a band that Alex and I have seen live together. And we'll tell you more about that experience, I'm sure, next week. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye.